Thank you so much for introducing us, and thanks everyone for being here. We wanted to share our vision and what opportunities we see from the Association of Argentine Cooperatives. Our idea was to think about sustainability, what we're looking at, and what comes in the future, and linking it to what is happening in the market nowadays. First of all, ACA is a cooperative conformed by 137 cooperatives. It is a second-degree cooperative that in turn has 50,000 producers. So the owners of ACA are 50,000 agricultural producers. It is distributed in 11 provinces. Some producers are in 550 localities, which shows the breadth of what ACA covers. And ACA also has some linked societies such as ACA Bio, the bioethanol company Alimentos Magros, which does pork and industrializes this towards cold cuts, etc. It also has some other companies. It is a pretty extensive list, but it is a company which is mainly important due to its geographical distribution. Their main business is grain, and then inputs for farmers. When we speak about sustainability and what we are committed with, we need to have a framework where the business is linking and what we are doing with regards to sustainability and how we keep the balance between the care of the environment and the social welfare and the environmental protection. So this is what we base our work on, and we understand that this is becoming more and more important. It's not just about the business, but how the business links to what organizations do when it comes to governance, social, environment, speaking about companies that are viable in economical terms. Why did we begin to speak about this sustainability in organizations? And there are some pillars who drive ACA to work on sustainability or in environmental sustainability that is within this. And the first issue is the financing of banking credits, bank loans. There are more and more requirements, so we must have this perspective as well. And this is a pillar that drives companies and ACA to begin to look at this growth in a balanced way. The access to markets, we can see that there's more and more regulations and more demands, so that drives sustainability as well, that business should be sustainable. And also the socio-environmental license. We began hiring people under the age of 30 who have a different perspective and experience, and they are seeking out to see what the companies are behaving with regards to the environment. So there are some issues that become important, and therefore this is also an important thing, not just internally but externally, how suppliers and clients and our supply chain perceives us. So these are the pillars that are driving ACA towards sustainability. Nowadays, to be transparent, ACA annually is disseminating a social balance where we follow the directives of the GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative. Most companies are reporting sustainability to this entity. And in ACA, we can organize this strategy, and it allows to inform upon what you're doing. So when we spoke at the beginning about vision and the path ahead and what are the opportunities that come from this, we begin to see that the world is not just looking at the impacts and what we're doing as positive impacts or negative impacts within the definition of governance, social and environmental, but also how risks and opportunities are dealt with in companies. So with that new perspective and that new approach with regards to the changes of how you report on what you're doing and how you manage it, this comes after the managing of strategies, the reporting, but not only thinking about what we've done, but also going and looking forward in the short, mid, and long term. We've been working, therefore, with the GRI reports, as I've said, where the report is prepared by the company, and we see what we're doing outwards, from the company outwards. This is designed for clients, employees to read it, where we show the environmental, social, human rights impacts that we're having. But we're always speaking about the year before. So our perspective now is to integrate the past with what we will be doing in the future, with the path ahead, in the short, mid, and long term through a strategic plan defined by the directors of the companies, where it shows our plan long term towards 2028, 2030, 2050, and to see how those positive or negative impacts are linked to those objectives that we have. And also integrating financial information, not just how we impact in a positive or negative way outwards, but how we begin to manage the outwards inside our company. So we begin to link impacts and to see what we generate, and also to look outwards and see how that can impact us via risks and how we can minimize them and seek out opportunities. For example, renewable energies. That is an opportunity that comes from the climate change. So it comes from outside, and it allows us to not just manage the impact, because we were contaminating and polluting. So we begin to use renewable energies to respect the law, but we also reduce our greenhouse gases and we lower risks. And if we look at the costs of energy bought from the grid versus renewable energy, we can also save. So when you have this double perspective, not just of our own impact, but what are the opportunities and the risks that come from outside, if we integrate that with our plan in the short, mid, and long term, it gives us a holistic vision of our performance, our perspective, in a more balanced way. And this allows us to be more clear, more transparent when it comes to reporting, and also when it comes to manage an internal organizational strategy. It allows you to have better information. Within those commitments, within the principles of sustainability, whenever we work with GRI or with NFSFA, which is for the path ahead, talking about impacts, risks, opportunities, and the future, materiality is important for transparency, to have a procedure to be able to manage and report relevant subjects for the organization, for the external context, and relevant from the financial perspective, to be able to evaluate risks and identify opportunities. Within these, we can see financial performance, social performances. We separated it in internal and external, such as human rights, labor conditions, health and safety for employees, equal opportunities. It's also what we do to the community by contributing to it and programs for it. And at some point, companies generally in the report used to say, we give so much money to the community. The evolution has taught us how to measure these impacts. So we work in a more organized way through programs to be able to measure as a positive impact towards society. Environmental performance. A while ago, we began to speak about mitigation of the carbon footprint and the adaptation to climate change, emission of greenhouse gases, the sustainable supply chain. Markets ask us to be more sustainable in our supply chains, the management of waste and recycling, and the management of water and effluents, wastewater. That's within environmental performance. And if we speak about management of climate change, measuring and mitigation of our carbon footprint, this is something we've begun measuring recently. We have 105 sites between offices and subsidiaries, industries, and storage areas. So we measure 1 and 2, and we are reporting that. And we're working in Outreach 3 by adding all of our locations, and therefore we have a great challenge ahead in the very broad organization and diverse organization over 11 provinces and different sectors. Adaptation to climate risk. We begin to see what's happening from inside to outwards, how climate will affect us, working with different probability maps in the short and mid-term in different situations in order to have measurements that allows us to think about what's happening in each area and what we should think about for each of the sites in order to be able to achieve resilience towards climate change and to be able to adapt.
Also, sustainable supply chains. We are now looking at some notions such as traceability in productive terms, in logistics terms, and also risk analysis based on deforestation. If we consider these three categories, we are considering our actions in terms of renewable energies, energy efficiency, logistic efficiency, where we can have a great impact, how we are going to use new technologies to our advantage for carbon footprint, also the new inputs for soda beverages, and the technologies that emerge migrating from paper-based documentation to technology-based documentation. We are also working on weather maps. We try to identify projects associated with agriculture. We have a platform called Giro, which is for logistics. And we are looking for opportunities. We are looking at different certificates, bonds. We have a bioelectricity company located in a town in San Luis province. We have renewable energy that is being sold through a certificate. We are using part of that energy that is generated for our own branches, offices, and our plastic recycling plant, and also at the port, Puerto Timbúes. Our goal is to continue adding value in environmental topics, and we are also aiming at doing some trading with these certificates. Good morning. I am Germán Pomelli. I am part of the commercial team of the association, and I would like to address the topic of sustainability for grains. Whether you know our association or not, I would like to say that we are one of the main suppliers of the market. We are a distributor, and whenever we negotiate a product, the negotiations have a lot of pressure on the demand side for sustainability. So we decided to fully focus on this area. We are aligned with the company's sustainability policies. We see it as part of the business, and it is also a floor for us in terms of standards. We also detected the need to support our cooperatives in certification, training, workshops. So we started working hand in hand with cooperatives. And as Alejo was saying, we detected a business opportunity in terms of sustainability in the new markets. To give you an idea of our supply chain, we have front end with our producers, we have our own storage facilities, and we are providing training and education, and we are promoting the new ideas in sustainability with producers so that they will detect business opportunities. These are the sustainability pillars in the market. They are well known by everyone. Non-deforestation or deforestation-free, preserving forested areas. Also, net zero, that is to say, carbon neutrality and products with a low carbon footprint. We are also focused on traceability for food and animal feed. We are also focused on sustainable supply chains, and we adapt to the specific requirements of the domestic market. As Alejo mentioned at the beginning, sometimes it is a condition to access some loans or credit lines to have sustainable supply chains. We are also committed with sustainable companies, and we are working with export products. How did we do all of this? We work with a number of cooperatives. We organized online and in-person training workshops. The big impact was having a general view of the market, an overview of the market trends, so that it is applicable for many producers. We also have networking efforts, and we have visibility on social media. This provides direct connection with producers. In terms of commercial management, we negotiate annual agreements for the products so that the certificates will remain valid throughout the season or throughout the year, not just during 2 or 3 months. We also provide economic support in terms of certification, audit costs, so that they will overcome the barriers of access. And we have also created a series of tools. We have developed them internally or we have outsourced them, and I'm going to show them in more detail. So what are the results or the outcomes of these efforts? We were able to achieve 2BS certificates for more than 50 cooperatives. For EPA certificates, we were able to support more than 45 websites. Not websites, 45 sites. As regards direct producers, we certify for exports more than 3,000 products, each of them with their own techniques, systems, and information requirements. And we have distributed more than 3 million tons of sustainable products, and we have been measuring the carbon footprint in more than 38,000 tons. As regards communication, on our website, we have information on sustainability. This is a landing page that has several sections with certification requirements and some information. This information is available to the cooperatives, and they can adapt the look and feel and distribute the flyers with their own stakeholders. We have adhered to VSEC due to the new demands from the European Union, and we also have some other partnerships in food and beverages. We have been working with 2BS. We have certified more than 50 storage sites, and we support with the files, the documentation, the procedures. We take responsibility for that so that we can automate the administrative burden and we can make it easier for the cooperatives. We provide support in audit processes until they obtain the certificate. Once they are certified, we provide management support so that they can continue operating with all administrative aspects under control. As regards EPA and the renewable fuel standard, we participate in information gathering or evidence gathering. We have certified more than 45 plants of cooperatives and some of our own storage sites. As regards VSEC, we are working together with the VSEC team. We are working on awareness raising. We want to contact producers and to make them aware of the different demands and requirements of the supply chain. And as regards the ISCC, we have exports of bioethanol from Villa Maria, Córdoba. We are also having some initiatives in FSA, the Farm Sustainability Assessment, for one specific client that has a carbon footprint requirement, and we are going to manage this in order to make the process more cost efficient. And for the Roundtable on Responsible Soy Association, we will also be certifying one of our cooperatives. As Alejo was mentioning, we have 2 proprietary tools and some of them are outsourced. We have the satellite mapping. We understand what kind of grain is planted and whether it is sustainable or not. We can do some traceability. We have our logistic platform called Hero, and this is associated with different requirements. Understanding the multi-functioning of different systems, we have outsourced one of the certification systems, and this is the one we are showing on the screen. It is made available to cooperatives for free, for no charge, so they can document their storage capacity with data support and traceability. We have also included some digital tools to make the certification more dynamic. This was one of the demands we were facing because producers had trouble signing the certifications, but now we have digitized all of that. We have some challenges. In the first place, we had some inconsistent or intermittent demand, as we call it. It was one of the main obstacles we had to reestablish contact with some of the cooperatives. Also, the producer hubs. So the polygon is the perimeter that the producer submits for the deforestation analysis, because sometimes they draw the polygon in a way that is not consistent. For instance, they will include a lake or some other geographic feature which is not appropriate. So we try to provide coaching in this regard. We also have observations for the tax returns. Sometimes there are inconsistencies in the names of the fields or lots that have been enabled. We also have the RENSPA forms. Many of them are not active, have been discontinued, or are outdated. So we are trying to get them up to date together with VSEC. This will enable us to provide more traceability in order to enter the European market. We also have some time. We also take into account the timing of authorizations. When it is harvest time, we know there are delays at port. So we try to make that process more efficient. So where are we headed? We understand we are in a market that has been transformed. We face a new economic model with low emissions. This is the early stage, and we are on a journey of transition for mitigation on the third year. We have been in touch with exporters, and some of them are trading with France and other European countries, and they have strong commitments with metrics designed for 2030.
Quizás siempre lo ponemos como una expresión de deseos, que algún día llegue un esquema que aglutine y normalice todo.
A scheme that helps requirements. We're transitioning from voluntary schemes that may serve the mandatory schemes, like, for example, the EU directive that requires certain certifications. Our vision from the market perspective is that it helps and it teaches you to be in some schemes. Some of them have a degree of complexity, but we believe that the ones that are coming from now are actually talking about sustainability, not just the environmental, but more the governance and the social and the work conditions point of view. That's all I wanted to say. Alejo, I don't know if you have any comments about our tools and our measurements. As Germán was saying, something that is very important is to be able to give support from our organization towards cooperatives and producers. We're working strongly and helping our customers when it comes to carbon footprint, which is something that had been mentioned before. And what is it? How can we transform all of the consumptions that production of a grain entails when it comes to fuels, seeds, fertilizers, how do we transform those kilograms in carbon dioxide or an equivalent to express it in just one unit? That is a great challenge, and we're working on our own tools for that. We're working with Aca Sustentia, and that will allow the producer to upload the consumption and to be able to choose the type of grain, and from that to measure their carbon footprint. And when we see the challenges that Germán mentioned and the different programs or schemes or requirements from the markets or the customers, we can see that there are various types of tools to calculate the carbon footprint. And when we put the same data in 3, 4, or 5 different calculators, we can see differences because there are differences in criteria when it comes to assessing it. So we see that as a challenge. And when we say that we have to collaborate and give support and go towards technology, we also must think of various schemes to be able to satisfy those requirements and to offer the support that the cooperative or the producer needs. So we began to work with rye. Before we worked with the sustainable maize, which is certified with the ECC of the European Union. And to be able to go into the European market, they had to satisfy certain requirements. The ethanol had to be 70% reduction of emissions compared to a liter that was produced in Villa Maria versus 70% of a liter in the EU. We needed not just to have the certificate and to satisfy that requirement, but we also needed to have sustainable maize or corn. So we began working with the cooperatives so we could integrate with ECC, and then we would turn it into bioethanol, and we could work on that and satisfy the requirements of the EU. That was the initial point. We began a while ago on rye, and this allows us to integrate new calculators, not just what the SCBS required for the European Union, but some customers ask for other calculators such as CFT, which is also validated worldwide, and that's why we know the differences. And when we have to talk to producers, we tell them, we bring awareness, and we tell them what are the differences in results and how there are other differences, and we can tell them what can be happening. Because here, once you go to ask for information from a producer, you must ask them why, what it's for. The producer wants more information. And therefore, as an example, we always measure and we divide the emissions, in the case of this example with rye, how much it is because of the residue of the harvest, the use of fertilizer, the fuel, and we can see that most of it is in the production and use of fertilizer, and that's where we think the highest rate of emission comes per gram of rye, and that's where the emissions are. And when we see the light blue or yellow bar or orange bar, 344 that we have in Argentina, which is a value that in the region should be around that value as an average for the country. If we take quite a few producers within this rye program, we can find that the average is 2.27, so there is a difference with the baseline. So in general, what we try to show with different baselines what your position is with regards to the competition. So that will allow you to find out how efficient your management is. And if we see at the bottom, we can measure it in hectares, And we can see that many times, whether there's drought or not, how the application is within the different hectares and how the yield works. We see the example here of a producer versus locality, which in this case was very similar in dosing between these two groups, and that will have an effect on the average later on. Maybe you have used 920 kilos of carbon dioxide per hectare, but if the yield was 3,000 and not 5,000, then that will change the results in the graph at the top when you expressed in kilo of product. And you must have a reference point. When the producer sometimes asks, how can I tell if my position is good or bad? And we work with, of course, different points of reference with the program of the stock in Buenos Aires, and we work with the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries and Livestock. So through the technology of the EU, we are using their calculator, and we also use the CFT1 to be able to help the market. And different productive areas, as differentiated by Reta, we know the value that each place should have as an average. And this allows us to know the distribution, what are the values that can be obtained in each of these productive regions. And this allows us to give information to the producer so that they can make decisions, or they can understand what kind of improvements they can have. Because we're not just speaking about measuring, but what are we measuring for? We measure to mitigate. So this is what we wanted to share when it comes to footprint, carbon footprint. But ACA is looking after sustainability, and within this, one of the main areas is a sustainable supply chain where we support the market in order to be within the market. And therefore, we need to keep opening up and seeing what we want to measure, and we see the issues that are coming up. If everything was unified, it'd be a bit simpler, but now we have it and we are part of this. We are applying it. We're always trying to be collaborative, trying to disseminate what we are doing, what we want to do, and what we can observe. And we take other opinions that are also valid and allows you to open your mind in these subjects that keep changing and moving forward in a dynamic manner. I just want to thank you for being here, and we're open to answer any questions. There was a clear difference between sustainability and the social indicators. What are the social indicators that you have with the community? Not so much inwardly. When it comes to sustainability, there is an interpretation issue. The first time they spoke about sustainability at Rio, they took the word in English, which is sustainability, and in Spanish, there are two ways to say it. So there is sustentabilidad and sostenibilidad. So many companies choose one or the other term, talking about this environmental, social, and economic. ACA at some point began using this term as well, and a while ago we made the decision to call it by the second term when we added the three axes. And also, but you'll find many companies in Argentina or in any of the Spanish-speaking countries that speak about sustainability, and they use either term. It is a conceptual term, and it's to do with the interpretation. Many times you should see what the title is and to see what it is referring to. Many companies from the Sustainable Development Goals, some began to migrate and some decided, because of different reasons, not to touch and to just leave it. With regards to the actions that you do with the community, we have a lot of companies that carry out different actions, especially contributions. Give money to clubs, to the firefighters, fire department, and many companies. This was seen as a good thing before, and you would report that that's what you gave to the community, the sum of money. But now, in these new systems, is migrating and changing and saying how, instead of giving them money, why don't we set up 2 or 3 programs with the same amount of money? Because otherwise there is always nepotism or the possibility of it. So to be more transparent, that takes to a grill of programs with different procedures that allows you to be more transparent, and also you'll be able to measure how much you are contributing or what was your impact in that social activity. And that's what we're doing now, migrating, changing, and thinking that the contributions to the community when it comes to education, health, or any type of help, whatever the organization has defined, can be done in a transparent way and in a measurable way with regards to the impact.
Bueno, creo que no hay más, así que, bueno, muchas gracias.
There are no further questions, so thank you very much for your time.